Have you ever heard of a civilization that built entire cities into cliffs, lived there for centuries, and then, seemingly overnight, just vanished? Today, we're diving into one of North America's greatest mysteries, the disappearance of the ancestral Puebloans, often known as the Anasazi. Who were they? The ancestral Puebloans were an ancient Native American culture that spanned across the Four Corners region of the United States. That is where Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Utah meet. For over 1,000 years, from roughly 100 AD to 1300 AD, they flourished. They were master farmers, cultivating corn, beans, and squash in a challenging desert environment. They were also incredible architects and engineers. You've probably seen pictures of their most famous creations, the breathtaking cliff dwellings. Places like Mesa Verde in Colorado and Chaco Canyon in New Mexico are testaments to their ingenuity. These weren't just simple caves. They were complex, multi-story apartment buildings, some with hundreds of rooms, all tucked into sheer rock faces. Imagine waking up every morning hundreds of feet above the canyon floor, with a view that stretched for miles. Their society was sophisticated. They built extensive road systems, like the ones radiating from Chaco Canyon, which served as a major cultural and trade hub. They created beautiful, intricate pottery and had a deep spiritual life, evidenced by their kivas, circular, subterranean chambers used for ceremonies. For centuries, their civilization thrived, grew, and adapted. But then, around the late 1200s, something changed. Within a few short decades, these magnificent cliff palaces and bustling towns were abandoned. The people who had called this land home for generations packed up and left. The question that has puzzled historians and archaeologists for years is, why? Where did they go? This wasn't a slow decline, it was a mass migration. They walked away from their homes, leaving behind pottery, tools, and even stored food, as if they intended to return but never did. So what happened to the Anasazi? That's the million-dollar question, and there isn't one simple answer. Instead, researchers point to a perfect storm of factors that likely pushed them to their limits. The first major suspect is climate change. Tree-ring data from the period reveals a devastating event known as the Great Drought, which lasted from about 1276 to 1299. Imagine more than 2 decades with very little rain. In an already arid land, this would have been catastrophic. Crops would have failed, springs would have dried up, and the game they hunted would have moved on. Without a reliable food and water source, supporting large populations in these elaborate cities would have become impossible. The land that had sustained them for so long was turning against them. But drought alone might not be the whole story. There's also evidence of increasing social unrest and conflict. As resources became scarcer, competition would have intensified. Some archaeological sites from this period show signs of defensive structures, like walls and blocked-up doorways, suggesting a fear of raids or attacks. Were neighboring groups fighting over the last remaining fertile lands? Or was there internal strife, a breakdown of the social order within the communities themselves? Some theories even point to the collapse of the religious and political system centered at Chaco Canyon, which may have created a power vacuum and social instability across the entire region. Another contributing factor could have been resource depletion. After centuries of living in the same place, they may have simply used up what the local environment had to offer. Deforestation for building materials and firewood would have led to soil erosion, making farming even more difficult. The land, once fertile, may have become barren and exhausted. So, we have a devastating drought, potential conflict, and depleted resources all hitting at the same time. It's a recipe for disaster. Faced with these insurmountable challenges, the ancestral Puebloans made a difficult choice: to leave. They didn't just vanish into thin air. They migrated. But where did they go? Archaeological and oral traditions from modern Puebloan peoples, like the Hopi, Zuni, and the Rio Grande Pueblos, provide the answer. Their stories tell of long journeys from a previous homeland to their current locations. They are the descendants of the so-called vanished people. The people of Acoma, Laguna, and Taos Pueblo, for instance, trace their lineage directly back to the inhabitants of Mesa, Verde, and Chaco Canyon. So, the ancestral Puebloans never really disappeared. They adapted. They moved to areas with more reliable water sources, like the Rio Grande Valley in New Mexico and the Hopi Mesas in Arizona. They reorganized their societies and continued their cultural traditions, which are still alive and well today. The mystery isn't one of a lost people, but of a great migration and the incredible resilience of a culture in the face of immense hardship. The cliff dwellings they left behind are not tombs of a dead civilization, but powerful reminders of a chapter in a long, continuous story. They stand as silent, beautiful monuments to the ingenuity and spirit of the ancestors of today's Puebloan people. Visiting these places, you can't help but feel a sense of awe and respect for the people who carved a life out of these cliffs and whose legacy continues to thrive. What do you think was the main reason for their migration? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey into the past. If you enjoyed this video and want to explore more historical mysteries, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you won't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious.